Sacha Waldman, welcome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. No, it's good to be back, man. It was a couple of years that I've been away. I was traveling around. I was in Europe for a bit, and then South Africa. Then I was in LA. But yeah, I'm back home again.
Yeah.
Although it seems a bit crazy at the moment, but yeah, I'm back home, which is cool.
So we chatted about it before. I asked you to come on here. You've done a lot of interesting campaigns. You shot a lot of interesting celebrities, particularly in the hip hop scene. Did I hear right? It was two or three different album covers. Eminem and 50 Cent.
Yeah, I worked with gosh, I mean, it was a while back, but when I was submerged in the hip hop world, I was deeply submerged. I got turned onto it by an incredible man who's unfortunately no longer with us. His name was George Pitts, and he ran Vibe magazine at the time, and Vibe and XXL were like the premier hip hop magazines. And I started working with George, and I was doing very interesting, different work at the time. Pioneered like a hip hop look that they tell me, it was just, it happened, circumstance, different time. And so I started shooting it, and it blew up, and everybody wanted to work with me. And I worked with Jay-Z, Eminem, 50,
Cool.
Outkast, all of them. Did a couple of Eminem and Jay-Z's album covers. I worked with Pharrell Williams. No, it was a great time. I was fully submerged in hip hop for about 4 or 5 years, and it was a trip, bro.
Yeah.
It was very,
Yeah.
it was a wild ride, bro. The world seems a lot tamer now, bro.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So, could you walk us through sort of what happens? Somebody calls you and says, Sacha, you've got the job, or whoever you want to call it. Next week, Friday, has they need images for this. What happens from there? Is next week, Friday, too soon?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think, when you get to, I hate to use that word level, but when you get to the point where you're working with people like that, we have a bit of a structure around this that helps us as photographers. Not everybody has an agent, but at the time, most people did. It was kind of, I don't know if the landscape's changing now with the importance and relevance of agents, like anything else changes. Our businesses change. But back then, I had an agent who would talk to generally a creative director at Sony or Columbia Records. They would say that they have a shoot upcoming, and then we would discuss possible timings. But I would connect very heavily with the artist. I would always get on a phone call with 50 or Eminem. You never just did anything through the label. They were the ones that you spoke to, and that was often a trip. I'd be talking to them, and they'd be, all over the place, and it was interesting. Then I would talk to them, and they would often want some of my creative input and help, and then we would work out the logistics and get a producer involved who would get assistants and studios and bring the whole thing together. So I would focus mainly on the creative side of it, less so the logistics, and then the whole team would come together, and we would. Some shoots were easy, some shoots were really hard and challenging. It's just, you go with the flow, and as a photographer, we have to represent ourselves, and we have to deliver regardless of how difficult the circumstances are. And that, I think, makes a good photographer or a bad one. It's not just the caliber of the work. It's like you've got to be able to deal with a lot of different situations.
I'm sure a lot of different things come up, even in terms of timing or location or weather.
Absolutely, yeah. When you're working with big stars and musicians and stuff, they're not always the most reliable people. They're rock and rollers, hip hop stars. They live that lifestyle. I would go to places. Working with 50 was easy. He was super on. He and I became good friends, and he was super on point, and he was in there, and he was very professional. That was just his speed. I worked with other people where you'd wait hours while they smoked doob and did their thing, or like rode their Lamborghini around the block and then went for some food, and then came back, went for a swim, But it was more chilled then. So I would just often go and just be a part of what their world is, and then just wait for them, wait and photograph them. But the most important thing is that at the end of the day, you had to get the shot and you had to deliver, because that's what you're
Yeah.
judged on as a photographer. People will forget the day of the shoot very quickly, and they will say, okay, where's the shots, so you've got to find a way of getting it done.
And then in terms of when you're discussing creative with them, and there's certain things that you need to make that creative come to life, like equipment, for instance, lights or something like that. When one of the hiccups happens, like you can't do it at this place because of whatever reason, how much space is there in saying, okay, but then our creative has to change because we can't?
I'm with you. That's a good question, brother. It's always very difficult, because the artist always wants, gold elephants flying in the sky, and Lear jets and Bentleys, and so I mean, generally what you try and do is you try and build a structure around yourself. It's very difficult when you as a photographer have to do the creative, the producing, and not have any buffers. So what you try and do is, it's the art of deflection. Is you'll try and always aim for the stars and say, great idea, let's have a look. I was known to be honest, so I was never, for lack of a better word, an asker. So I would just I'd be realistic and say, I think that's achievable, that's not. But you had people in the label and agents and producers that would, because they're the ones that are employed to try and find the gold elephant. So you say, what, dude, I'm a good producer, but I can't get it. So you have people, it's a team effort. It's not a singular one.
I mean, I imagine at that level, budget is less of a concern as much as time is.
Sure.
When somebody, a celebrity of any kind, they're valuing their time. How structured are you if they say you only have half an hour? I've actually worked with you on a shoot in Cape Town where there was quite a short time, and it's like
bro, you have to, you've got to adapt. I mean, I think it is always it's very difficult. Timing with celebrities is always tough. To pin them down. The bigger the star, they just, it's not. Sometimes people who don't necessarily understand the world by virtue of seeing it and being privy to it and working in it think that it's maybe they're just divas and stuff. But no, I mean, their lives are planned so far ahead of time with schedules and concerts and all sorts of stuff that it is like slots. So you find your time. You have people that try and work around you. And generally with album covers, you're lucky because they have a big interest in it.
Sure.
It's their album. But sometimes I've had hours to play and shoot with people, and I've had 20 minutes. And if you've got 20 minutes, you've got 20 minutes. I try and encourage more time if I can. I try and inspire them,
sure.
Rather than get them involved. But if at the end of the day, if you can only get, 20 minutes worth of shots, then people, I just remind people, that's all I had. I'm not a magician. I do the best I could.
So you mentioned you had, you do a pre-call or a few with the actual artist. If it happens on a day that you have 20 minutes or 5 hours or the whole day or 2 days, how does your sort of approach work differently in terms of getting a rapport with the client? Because obviously the better that is, the better you're going to get from each other.
Yeah, I think I think that's part of our skill set as photographers. It's not it's difficult. Some people are awkward or some people are not. And, our skill set is trying to get a connection, as quick as you can with an artist. I mean, my approach is always to, just be chilled and not very, I fortunately was never too starstruck, so just chilled, and like the big stars, you get kind of used to it. And you're like, I'm here for you. I'm trying to do the best we can. What can we do together? This is something you're going to benefit from, and try and bring them into the process of, you're not just here to be photographed for a magazine or whatever. Like, this is you. You're representing yourself. So I try and as much as I can, try and involve them in the process. but that's hit or miss. I mean, I've had opportunities where it's worked great, and I've had opportunities where I might as well been talking to a stone, bro, because
Yeah.
there's just no,
Sure. Sure.
there's just no getting through, bro.
Yeah.
And then you just do what you can, and you backtrack, and you just leave it alone.
Well, whatever you have done, the work's been really amazing.
Thank you, bro.
Now that we're just across the river, let's do a live one in the sort of coffee
Yeah,
shop. that we
definitely.
talked
And
about.
I'm all keen, man. When life gets back to normal,
Sure.
bro, let's go to a coffee shop and do it, bro.
Yeah.
Most definitely.